Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Ranyah Salous with Guidehouse. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Neeraj Koul, CDO at Federal Railroad Administration. Quick background about myself. I have supported a number of engagements across various technology projects over the last 12 years. 6 of those years I have been at Guidehouse, focusing on supporting the Department of Transportation and Federal Aviation Administration in using technology and innovation to support their missions. Regardless of the capability, whether it's data analytics, AI/ML, automation, cloud, system modernization, you name it, data has been at the center of every initiative that I have led, with the CDO playing an integral role in the success of these projects. So as you can imagine, the discussion today is very near and dear to me. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Koul, to introduce yourself.
My name is Neeraj Koul. I'm a senior technical advisor here within the Federal Railroad Administration, and I also serve as FRA Chief Data Officer. I'm a formally trained computer scientist with a PhD in computer science. I have close to 2 decades of experience of figuring out how do we leverage data to meet mission objectives. My career has taken me across academia, private sector, not-for-profit, and the federal government. In my current role as the FRA CDO, I provide strategic direction on all data-related initiatives within FRA. That's a fancy way of saying, as I figure out working across all our offices, that how we can leverage data to meet our mission objectives. And I'm excited to be here to be talking to you and talk about how FRA is using and plans to leverage data to move us forward.
Wonderful. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to leaning in on that expertise. I do have a few questions for today. To start, it's incredible how data can drive mission critical decisions. I'm curious, Dr. Koul, how does reliable and timely data contribute to advancing FRA's mission? Can you provide a couple of illustrative examples?
That's a very good question. So the FRA's mission is to enable the safe, reliable, and efficient movement of people and goods for a strong America, now and future. Data plays a critical role in enabling our decision makers, our inspectors, our grant folks to achieve this thing. FRA has been collecting safety data from railroads for a long time. A couple of data sets that are important to FRA, or it collects, is the data we collect around railroad incidents and accidents. So essentially, every time an incident occurs on the railroads that meets certain criteria, they are required to send that data to FRA. Similarly, every time there is a casualty, which is either a fatality or an injury for a certain set, that data is reported to FRA. So FRA essentially uses that data for a variety of ways, essentially figuring out trends, what are the safety metrics for the various things to enable us to do our activities. We use that data for finding trends, for finding issues or something that FRA needs to track and essentially act upon so that we have a safer railroads.
Great. I think it's very important, as you mentioned, how this information is disseminated to the public for opportunities to identify, for how to improve the safety and criticality of these operations. So that's great to hear. As we all know, scalability is such a crucial aspect of data management. So as data volumes and complexity continue to grow, what measures is FRA actually implementing to ensure its data systems can scale effectively while still maintaining that speed and reliability essential for critical safety and operational decisions?
So I look at this answer to this question at 3 different levels. So one is essentially at an infrastructure level. So this essentially means that we have the necessary computing power and infrastructure to make sure we are able to manage and handle the data that comes to FRA and are able to analyze it for purposes. So that's one part of this thing, which is the generally, if you can look at it as in the traditional sense, we call it the IT component. So within FRA, we are essentially making sure that our infrastructure is in place that allows us to do this thing. We have adopted some best practices like a cloud-first architecture to do those things. In addition to that thing, as part of the infrastructure, we also recognize that analyzing this data to make sure that valuable insights are drawn from it to meet our mission objectives, that's also possible to do this thing. So we are working towards making sure that we have the necessary analytical tools, policies, and procedures so that some of our data scientists are able to leverage this data. So that's at an infrastructure level. But in addition to that, the other thing that we are looking towards is a data management aspect of this thing. So at FRA, we have recognized that IT component and the data component, they're two different fields. So sometimes people feel that they are the same, but we recognize that isn't seen. One is at the infrastructure level. The other part of it is at the data management level. So this ensures that as data flows within FRA, it's managed well, it's have high quality, it's of reliability, and data practitioners or data management practitioners are involved in the process to make sure that we have the high quality and reliable data for analysis. At the third point of these six is what we are essentially ensuring that as we have the infrastructure, we have the data management, and we have the data analytics folks to do this thing. We use them to provide the right information to the decision makers at the right level. The level or the detail of information that you would be giving to a chief safety officer is different from somebody that you may be providing to a data scientist, or the way that you want to make sure that this information is available to a subject matter expert is very different to somebody who's an operation research. So that is essentially, we're addressing this problem at three different levels: at the infrastructure level, at the data management level, and at the right analytics at the right time. We within FRA are making sure that our data is available to end users through a variety of data visualization tools that enables the end users to leverage this data and garner valuable insights for doing their day-to-day activities.
Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to just think about all of the moving pieces and dependencies, right? To your point, the foundational aspects of infrastructure, and then how that influences how that data is visualized and disseminated and accessible across the organization. To your point, how is it managed and governed, and so many moving parts. But I do think it is a multifaceted approach that's required for the success of the organization. So that's great.
Yeah, that's a key thing, because I think one of the, as I mentioned, data is a means to meet mission objectives. It's a tool. And one of the things, as in from past experience, where there's a gap essentially is because to get the value, you need to make sure all these three moving parts are in sync. A gap or a limitation in anywhere really prevents just from extracting value from that. And once we have these things in place, we can handle volume, complexity. And the critical thing, I think, within FRA, what we have is, while we don't have streaming data as of yet or something, we have what in the traditional workspace is called the variety of data. And we want to make sure that we are able to leverage that data to find insights.
Great. So AI is the buzz of the town, has been now for the last several years, and is a game changer in this industry. As a CDO, how do you envision AI enhancing FRA's ability to make data-driven decisions that improve both the rail system and safety and operational efficiencies?
In the past 60 years, there have been a lot of AI winters. The hype has been there and it hasn't been met. I believe that this time around, the potential of AI is really there, particularly around the generative AI. That's what has really driven the buzz for it. Also, that while for a long time, AI isn't new, while generative AI may be AI had been the purview of data scientists or something, but with this commoditization of this thing, there's a new sense of users who can leverage AI. But coming back to how I see it at FRA, I see AI as a tool, albeit a powerful one. How do we leverage it to meet our mission objectives? There are a couple of things I want to kind of bring out. To meet the promise of AI, we need to make sure that it is integrated into our activity. It's a tool, while making sure that we have managed some of the challenges and risks that are associated with the usage of AI. I also want to bring out like two different cases out here. One is the use of AI within the federal government or within FRA to do our day-to-day activities. I see that as one aspect. And then the second part of it is FRA is a regulatory agency. So how does some of the artificial intelligence-based tools or something that we need to ensure the safe introduction of them into the industry. So I think the promise of AI is that it can reduce some of the manual burden that people have there. It can help make them more efficient to do their activities, in the sense that it will take out some of the what I call as manual activities that take a lot of time, while unleashing our folks to work on what they are as expertise. So that's a key part, I think, from productivity tools. Making sure that we are using it in the right way. We need to make sure that there aren't any privacy considerations. We are not leaking the data. So towards this purpose, we are working with the Department of Transportation, which is the one that is kind of at the top of all the modes, to make sure that we have tools that can be leveraged by the individual subject matter experts to answer some of the questions around in a chat GPT or a Gemini-like setting. So we're making sure the tools that we have, they are safe to use at an enterprise level, so that the individual users don't have to worry about how the data is being used, it's being protected. What I look as these insights, I don't see it as data-driven things. What I see it as is data-informed decision. So essentially, the insights that we have garnered from this data serves as another data point that allows end users, inspectors, decision makers to look at the problem holistically and able to make effective decisions to do that. So I would like to see, I know this term has been something that I essentially call human-machine teaming, colloquially. This is where we essentially use the AI or machine learning-based insights in sync with our subject matter expertise to make a much more informed decision.
Yeah, I think there's a very, one of the things you mentioned, though, I think it's an important distinction to make, is that what really makes, the use of AI different in recent years is that generative component and its availability to the average business, performer or user analyst. Whereas traditionally you had data scientists that were specialized in machine learning and other AI components. But I don't know that we do recognize enough that the importance of establishing governance and guardrails specific to the persona, right? Because to your point, the way in which you use this technology is going to be very different. And it's not just I have an end user and then I have the developer. It's sometimes now these end users are also participating in the build of these solutions through things like Copilot, right? That it's becoming a lot more accessible through a very intuitive, interface or method. So that's something I think that's very important for other CDOs to take note of is, are we building governance and standards and policies and procedures that are really taking into account the persona of the different, individuals that are going to be interacting with this technology? And how do you establish nuances that are appropriate to account for that?
Yeah, that's a very critical thing. I'm glad that came across, because essentially people who are well versed in AI or something, they traditionally know some of the challenges or limitations, making sure that the data is right for the problem, understanding the concept drifts, understanding what the ML or AI ops. But with the availability of AI tools to an end users, that really lowers the barrier to entry. We need to make sure that our governance and training is appropriate so that people understand hey, how they have to use these tools, and how do we make sure that the insights that they're garnering from their tools is appropriate for their use case, and making sure that they have taken into account the challenges, the limitations. And that's what I think as a CDO, you need to balance both these things and make sure we're able to effectively leverage AI.
Absolutely. I mean, you're equally as excited as they are to use the technology, but there's obviously a lot of considerations in doing that in a safely guarded manner that, protects the data and the agency as well. So that makes sense. Thank you, Neeraj, for joining me today. It has been a pleasure discussing the transformative power of data and technology in the transportation industry.
Thank you, Ranyah. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about some of the data-related activities within FRA, and really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks a lot.